everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WC Reader, and welcome back to my channel. And here are some things that I want to see more of in books. So stay tuned. Is more female friendships. I feel like Shay and I have this discussion a lot. And I feel like I did a video about this like a year or two ago, but there's just a lack of female friendships in like books just in general right now. I think when I was talking about it from the black YA perspective, but like I see them maybe in like cozy mysteries more than anything else, but not spread out like they should be. There's a lot of competition between women, it seems like, and a lot of times when we center books, we kind of do it around like having a man or having a girlfriend, and I'm like, but where are the friends though? Because you need good, strong relationships outside of just a potential love interest and life partner. My strongest relationship have and always will be friendships. Like, it's so much harder to find a good romantic partner, but when you find a good, I mean, it is hard to find a good best friend too, but when you find a good friend, those are the relationships that last years and years, that get you through the hard times in life. And I'm just like, where is it? I want to see a whole lot more of it, especially for like the younger generation. They need to see more of those stories and that type of representation, because again, like, it's easier to make friends, I feel like, when you are younger, just because you're put in more situations where you're meeting new people. So it's always weird to me when I pick up these YA books and like the main character has like no close friends or just like one friend. I would like to see a variety of hobbies in these books. Right now everybody is a writer or reader lately, it seems. And I understand why they're doing it, but I'm fucking sick of it. I am fucking sick of it. Because there's like a self-righteousness that also accompanies that. And I'm like, this is a book. You have access to an infinite number of hobbies. Like, you can have your main character's hobby be axe throwing. You can have your main character's hobby be glass blowing. They can have hobbies that you couldn't even imagine just because you're not skilled enough to do it, or because you don't have access to the funds to do it. So I'm like, why are we falling back on being a reader and a writer? And like, it ends up being very meta, like the types of books they read to, and I hate meta things in my books. I want to see more majority black schools, slash just diverse schools in general in books. I'm talking specifically about YA and middle grade. And adult to an extent, since there are a lot of people trying to write these new stories. But like, our whole entire life is not centered around white people. And when you're going to a school, even when you're surrounded by white people, there's usually like a sense of camaraderie and community between the non-white students, from my experience. And I don't see that in books, and it's just really weird to me. Because like, I went to Catholic school for 12 years, and it wasn't really a problem when I was like in the lower grades, just because my class was so small in general and most of the people I went to school with lived in my neighborhood. But it was more noticeable when I went to the high school, which was larger and whiter, that I was one of 4 black children in my class of like 108 people. And we had like a number of Latinx kids. I want to say maybe like 10. So it wasn't that much better, but it was a little bit better. And then we had like the Korean exchange students and stuff. And I was bused into school, so even if we weren't best of friends, we all at least were able to talk and acknowledge each other. And I had friends who were in different grades, which I don't know why, but like in YA, it's like they're allergic to having like people who are in different grades be friends with each other, and that I feel like that's very common in high school. Like I even see authors all the time talk about how, oh well, I'm writing for 18-year-olds, which means 14-year-olds shouldn't read it because it's too grown for them. And I'm like, you know, the 14-year-olds and 18-year-olds are at the same school. Like they interact in the same clubs and organizations. They might take the same bus, and sometimes they're even in the same classes depending on the situation. But it's like a need to keep them separate. So that would be interesting just to even see more of that like interaction in YA between like freshmen and upperclassmen. I want to see more variety in fantasy stories, like specifically diverse fantasy stories. I feel like they all kind of give an air of the same. Like if it's an African inspired fantasy, it's usually West African, and they're all like very similar because it's usually taking from the Yoruba people, but there's like so many different other groups with their own mythology that we could also incorporate, and I just don't really see that. I feel like when I see a lot of the hyped Asian inspired fantasy, it's either Indian, Korean, or Chinese, like for the most part. So there's a lot that can be done there as well. I would like to see more Irish fantasy. I would like to see just different groups of people having these fantasy stories. Like I don't feel like we're getting that a lot. At least not from what I'm sure there are like stories out there, definitely. But in terms of what I think is being pushed and what we're receiving like more of, I'm only seeing like similar things. I want to see more students actually go into class in these books that are centered around schools. Like if your book is set at a college, what kind of college courses is your main character taking? Figure out a way that you can incorporate the classroom and what they're learning in class and how they're able to apply that to the other things going on in their life. Figure out a way where you can tie the classroom into the story. Like one thing I think Blood Through did was they had scenes in the classroom and they affected the story, and they also helped the characters learn more about their history and their magic. I would like to see more characters raised by their grandparents, because that's such a common thing, especially within the Black community. I have a lot of cousins that were raised by grandma for various reasons, like mom was on drugs, mom just couldn't take care of their kids, mom traveled a lot, whatever the reason. There's like multiple reasons why children would be primarily raised by their grandparents, and like I said, it is so common that I just don't understand why like we're not seeing that on page very often. Like there's nothing wrong with the traditional family, but a lot of people don't have the traditional family. I feel like people jump from, well, if you don't have a mom slash family unit, found family, which great that you can make community with your friends, but there's something also different about the bond between the family you didn't get to choose and the family you didn't get to choose doesn't always just look one way. I want to see more books with Black farmers. I think I've said this in a previous video, but I would like to see more of it just from picture books all the way down. Especially since there is a big push right now for more Black people to reclaim farming. Like last month I was in Philly because I was there for a Juneteenth event, and I had my mom and my little cousin with me, and we were talking to the Uber driver, he was telling us how he was gearing up soon to move down to Georgia because his son and his wife are training to become farmers. They got a huge grant from the government to do this, so they got like about 40 acres. And they are taking the classes to learn how to properly grow things because the government is going to subsidize what they're growing. And that whole thing is just fascinating to me, and I've been hearing a lot of stories about that, and I've talked to authors who have kind of grown up in that environment and heard their thoughts about it. I've watched different media, read different articles, so I would love to see it in books more, especially because we know so many people in the South are fighting for their farmland. I think just it would bring more awareness. And I remember watching a special on PBS recently talking about urban farming and just how it's booming right now, but they had to kind of break the stigmas of some of the older generation as far as when they see farming they think of slavery, and no, it's not. More graphic novels aimed at adults, even when the characters are adults, like in Wash Day Diaries, where they're adults, they're doing adult things, they're adult storylines, it still gets labeled YA, and that's just weird to me. Because I'm like, there's literally nothing in that graphic novel that I feel like is teen content, but because it's a graphic novel, it's labeled as teen content. And adults are allowed to read graphic novels and comics too. Like, let's take the stigma away and actually realize what a great tool it can be for adults and how enjoyable they can be regardless if you read long form prose or not. And let's work on getting more graphic novels out to adults and really see them as a viable audience. I would like to see more variety in Caribbean literature. So often it's centered around generational trauma and passing along like abuse, and there's lots of sexual assault and stuff, and that's what's kind of seen as what's important, that's what's lauded in the literacy spaces. But I would just like to see more. Like, I want to see a mystery set in the region that where the detective is not a white man. It's the ones I read, the detective has been a white man. I want to see more romance set in the region. I want to see more horror. I want to see just more of a variety. We don't have to just tell one type of tale. I want to see more historical fiction too, because there's so little history, I feel like, written down in general. And then we don't get to see those glimpses into what life looked like prior. More girly fantasies, like girls who like makeup and hair and shopping, but are also able to kick ass and save the day. We had a lot of the magical girl fantasies in the 2000s, so I would like to see that make a resurgence, and even being written for like more age groups as well, because I think in YA there's like a really good space for those types of stories, and we don't really have books filling that need right now. I will always advocate for more picture books centered around different topics for Black children. There's like the main go-tos: natural hair, the different sounds that different instruments make. Now I'm seeing like a little bit more about nature, but we can just do so much better. So many times I'm looking for like a certain story. Like, I was looking for books that by Black authors in the picture book space set at aquariums. I could only find one, and that was indie, which is unacceptable. A lot of Black children who live in like lower income areas, they don't get to leave their area. They can't picture what certain things look like. So picture books are really like a window for them to see, this is what life could look like, this is what this looks like, and this could be you as well. So those are just things that I would like to see more of in books. Let me know if any of these are things you want to see more of, or let me know what you'd like to see more of in books. And if you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!